everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by the wonderful Taryn Hatcher. We've got plenty more off-season chatter for you. We're going to talk a little Sixers as well. We're going to tie it back to the Flyers. I think we have a fun question for fans, Taryn, that will certainly spark debate. But first, we're going to start a little NHL awards talk. Right now, Taryn, there's a lot of NHL awards being unveiled. A lot of the major ones will be unveiled during the Stanley Cup Final, but some other notable ones have also come out. The Selke Trophy being one, the Masterton Trophy being another. As we know, Oscar Lindblom won the Masterton Trophy, the award given to a player with the most perseverance and dedication to the sport. We know what Oscar had been through, so it was really great to see him win that award. Very earned and deserved. But Taryn, no other Flyers were finalists for any other awards. That's what happens when you have a season in which they did, so that is no surprise. But if we had to pick one Flyer, Taryn, to win another major award, or be the next one to win another major award, who would it be and what award? Who are you taking, Taryn? And it can be coach, it can be general manager of the year, anyone. Who are you picking?
Well, if Chuck Fletcher gets the Flyers out of whatever happened last season, he should get general manager of the year. Because there's some moves that need to be made. I think AB's got a long way to climb to get back in the Jack Adams conversation. Because to be honest with you, like I know it's not really on him. It's not entirely his fault, or maybe even his fault at all. But the lack of answers, and I think if you really read between the lines, the clear frustration that he had, and if you really look back at post-game press conferences, the way that we look at post-game press conferences, where we like are hanging on to every word that they say and trying to dissect body language and everything else, he really seemed like a parent with an ornery kid who couldn't figure it out. Like, he tried tough love, he tried being soft and gentle, he tried not saying anything. Like, he really tried all these different approaches, and none of it really seemed to do much for the team. I don't know if you can really blame him for that. So it could be interesting to see if they bounce back, like what kind of credit he gets. Because his tinkering the year before did work. I think it was key in the Flyers' success. I think the most likely anyone involved in the program to get back to award status has got to be Sean Couturier, just because he can do it on his own, and I don't really know where this team's going to be next year, but one thing that's for sure is Coots finds a way. And genuinely, I think if it wasn't for his injury at the beginning of the season and the team just not doing anything around him, if he had played on a different team this year, I would have been interested to see how his production and the way he played this year would have been considered in the eyes of, everyone voting. But he didn't, so he wasn't in consideration this season. Yeah. But yeah, like, there's not a Norris Trophy candidate on this team. There's not a Vezina candidate on this team.
What if they get Dougie Hamilton, Taryn? He could win.
If they get Dougie Hamilton, I'll throw a parade and give him my own award. But I heard rumblings that they were in on that, and then they were not as in on that, and then I don't know. I don't know the legitimacy of any of it though too. So because it's the off season, and I'm kind of just like hearing what comes to me. But I heard there might be some Jones interest, Mm-hmm. So but yeah, I think Coots is the most likely. Is there even anyone else? Who are you thinking?
No, like that, honestly, it really is the one. Like, he's got to be the most likely to be up for the Selke again. Like, he has the best chance of getting that award, I think, among other Flyers and other awards. And Taryn, I'm with you. Like, you can't miss 11 games in a shortened season and really be up for that award. But if he doesn't get hurt, I think he's much higher in consideration for the Selke this year. I don't think he had a bad year. Some people thought he was. No. I thought he was pretty solid. And he did receive a third place vote, two fourth place votes, and a fifth place vote. He still was second on the team in goals, and I think he was tied for. I think he was fourth in points. So, and missed 11 games. Taryn,
he was not right. Like, I get, we all waited till the end of the season for some big announcement, like that he needed some kind of surgery or something. I don't care what anybody says. He was not right. and he was still their best player. Like his consistency, I have to go back and check my notes because I honestly like just flushed it all out of my brain. But like there was a stretch of games where like he was producing and producing and producing and producing and producing. And there were a ton of games where like he should have gotten a secondary assist on his own goals. Like when no one else was doing anything, he was kind of forcing himself to be productive. So yeah, sorry. I just, when people knock Coots this year, I don't really know what else you want him to do. When he was not right the whole season after, because that injury was basically like the very start of the season. I don't think he was ever fully himself after that injury. And on top of that, like he was Mr. Fix-It for like one player at a time the year before. And that I think works. I think that does work for him. He can do that. But then he became like it was just a sea of people who needed correcting. And he was kind of the guy who was still trying to correct everybody. And I think that could have easily worked to his detriment. And it really didn't. Like he was still consistent and solid. He wasn't able to shine the way he did before. But part of the reason he was able to shine was because he wasn't carrying the weight of 80 people on his back. And this season kind of felt like he was. So yeah, sorry, I cut you off, but
No, it's a great point. And you think about it, if the season was 82 games, he played 45. If it was a full season and he was healthy, he would have gotten close to 30 goals and, probably 60, 70 points. That would have been a pretty good season. You're right. He wasn't healthy. He had 2 issues and he had to do a lot on a team that allowed the most goals in hockey. So that also brought down his chances. Taryn, I want to propose a fun one for you, and I think this is like...
You want to propose, Jordan?
No.
That's so not appropriate for an HR.
No, I can't do that with Austin. I'll say Cam York, maybe he's up for the Calder Trophy next year. That would be fun. I think it would be fun for us. That would mean a rookie would have a really good year on a team that we cover, and I think the Flyers certainly would love that because that would mean Cam York is here, he's playing the full season, and possibly they're cutting down on their goals against if Cam York's having a really good year. So maybe Cam York.
That's a hopeful thought that I think is realistic at the same time. Speaking of rookies, did you see Wade Allison like working out in front of stacks of hay up in Michigan, I guess, right? Made me laugh. I was just like, what a far way to come to Philadelphia.
Yeah. Kids doing whatever they can to get better.
Yeah. I was like, this is wild. Good for him. I think Cam is fun. I'm also very interested to see, not technically kind of Flyers, not really Flyers. I'm interested to see what Ian LeCarrier can do with the Phantoms now. So I think there's a lot of fun stuff going on with up and comers, which everybody who wants to win right here, right now, probably wants to like smack me in the face for saying that, because that's been like, I'm with you guys. Like that's been the last, 7 years is like up and coming prospects, young guys. At some point it's like, okay, let's realize some full potential. These guys are like 24. Not Cam. Wade is though. Wade's like 23. But yeah, I think there's some fun youth to watch out for. But again, as we always have said, this full past season in the summer, it's going to be interesting to see even what this team looks like next year, given expansion draft and the outcome of the season and what Chuck Fletcher's going to do. So we shall see. Indeed. Although I think, obviously Cam's safe from expansion draft, so no one needs to worry about that. No, so is Joel.
Yeah, even talking awards, you're thinking if the Flyers go out and have a pretty big offseason, maybe they get a big acquisition, possibly those acquisitions could be up for a major award. I think the Flyers would love to see a defenseman come in here and maybe be in the Norris conversation. But
where we started, Dougie Hamilton.
Seth Jones, come on in, win the Norris. So we'll have to see. But a fun chatter. Sean Couturier certainly seems like the most likely to be back into a major award conversation next season, but we'll have to let it play out.
Can I just real quick I feel like I don't know if you're gonna get this reference because like you don't get certain music references, but do I look like Michael Bolton right now? This is terrible podcasting. You don't? Okay, you go on. I'm gonna find you a picture of Michael Bolton.
I can't even say I know who Michael Bolton is. I'm guessing that's like a country singer.
Nope.
Copy.
No, he's not.
Copy, no country. All right, you look for that, and I will get into Flyers Talk is brought to you by Great Railing. Stop into Great Railing for the highest quality and lowest prices on all your railing, decking, and fencing needs. Well, Michael Bolton, as you... Yeah, you do a little bit.
We have the same hair.
You do. That is good.
I'm clipping this part for social media.
Yes, absolutely.
Hot tease for the podcast.
Aaron Bolton.
Oh, man. Okay, sorry. Really just ran this right off the tracks.
Well, we will get back on track here and look at two players that I think need to get back on track, Taryn. Travis Sanheim and Philip Myers. We're going to discuss which young defenseman, and some people will probably argue they are no longer young, has more expectations next year. Who has higher expectations to rebound and bounce back and be big-time difference makers for the Flyers, Travis Sanheim or Philip Myers? Taryn, I really think those two are kind of tied at the hip. A lot of people look at them in the same way in terms of what kind of players they need to be, who they can be as players. So if you had to pick one of those two next season, bigger expectations, who is it, Travis Sanheim or Philip Myers?
I think Travis Sanheim has higher expectations, but I think Phil has the longest way to go from where he played this year.
Okay.
But I think Phil played very, again, my take, not confirmed, whatever. Phil in that first, it always stuck with me. Phil in that first press conference after his injury said basically the doctor said it can't get any worse, so I'm just going to play through it. And I think he played through quite a bit of pain the whole season. Just my assumption, again, like we haven't had a ton of access, obviously, so it's hard for me to like really get a lot of solid context that I feel comfortable being like, this is what I know for sure. I always thought he didn't look like himself this season. The criticism of Phil since he came into the league from everyone has been his highs are very high, his lows are too low, he has to even out. And I think this year he wasn't able to realize the highs of his highs because of whatever he was dealing with and because of just team defensive breakdowns top to bottom. And I think his lows really got exploited. So I think Phil has the longest way to go because that floor really fell out beneath him and he has to bring it back up. But Travis, I think people expect his highs to be higher than Phil's. Yeah. Travis is expected to be, I think, a better player. I mean, Phil was this undrafted guy. He didn't not on a contract like Travis's contract. It's a whole different situation. I think people pair them together because one, they were a defensive pair, and two, you look at them and they look like these towers that skate really well, and you think they're the same player, but they're not. Like Travis, there's more expectation on him, and he's a guy who I remember talking to Scott Gordon about. He was too offensive and pinching too much when he first came to the league, and then he reeled it in, and then he got to the Flyers and they liked what he was doing, and then they gave him more freedom, and then they thought he could be a real contributing member of the offense and this, that, and the next thing. And then throughout the season, it just kind of became like Travis, just play defense, like just be in the right spots, be doing the right thing. A very uncharacteristic year for him. So I think people expect Travis to not ever have the lows that I think they will negotiate in their minds when they talk about Phil. But I think Phil has the longest way to go in that his lows were quite low this season. And I know Travis's plus minus in really bad games was oftentimes identical to Phil's because they played together. So it's a weird thing. People expect Travis to finish well, obviously he's not the top D pair, so I'm trying to word this the best way I can. I think people expect Travis in that race to always be number one and Phil to always be number two. Yeah. So in that way, Travis's expectations are higher, but I think Phil is further off from where he should be to be number two right now. If that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I'm with you. I think Travis Sanheim has more expectations just because he's a little further along in his career. He's got more games under his belt. He's a first-round pick. And I think the team just really needs him to take big-time strides to be a lot better, to prevent goals. And they've seen him. They've seen him play well. They've seen him show his upside, show his potential. And he had a tough year, along with a lot of people on the Flyers. But I think if Travis Sanheim can really take meaningful strides and get back to the player I think we've seen over the past two seasons before this most recent one, the Flyers will be in a lot better shape. I kind of feel for Philip Myers in a way. I just feel like there was a lot of pressure put on his shoulders very suddenly. Going into this year, he had 71 games under his belt. That's not even a full NHL season. And when Matt Niskanen retires, all of a sudden everyone was deeming him as a possible number one top pair defenseman next to Ivan Provorov. And I get it. It's pro sports, and when you're a prospect that people start thinking highly of, pressure builds. So I get that, but I felt like, and I was one of them. I was one of them that really thought very highly. I've thought highly on Philip Myers going back to when they got him as an undrafted free agent. I saw him in development camps. I saw him in camps, training camps, and I liked everything about him. I thought he would be very good, but I want to be patient with him, as I am with Sanheim. I think Travis Sanheim's only 25. I'm going to be patient with him as well, but I felt like there was a ton of pressure on Philip Myers to be like a top pair defenseman and suddenly just blossom into this stud. And when in reality, he had 71 games under his belt. He had just started becoming a regular in an NHL lineup, and Matt Niskanen retired, and people just kind of put him into this really tough, hey, show us who you are right away. So I'm willing to be patient with him. I think he had a tough year, just like a lot of guys. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to say Travis Sanheim, just because we've seen what he can do as an NHL regular. People know of his potential and upside, and he's a little further along in his career and also he's going to be on a new contract, Terrence. So that, he's a restricted free agent. He's going to have a new deal this year where people are going to start looking at that and say, hey, show us why we're paying you. Show us why you were a first round pick. Get us back into the playoffs. I think Sanheim for me is the guy.
And I just on the note of the Phil Myers potentially being like a number one pairing. I'm sure we discussed it at some point on like Flyers pregame live and on the podcast, and someone can tell me if I'm being totally hypocritical of something I said before. I did always think that was kind of an excited fan base who saw a lot of potential, and I was always fearful that that was going to be an over projection that did come back to bite him. That was always something I was concerned about, because when I would talk to, like my people that I have in place with the team, even throughout the weird COVID year, the sense that I very much got was, like we just got him to where we want him to be last year. And that was kind of a happy surprise. And we don't want to pump the tires too much. And then it's kind of everything gets out of control. And he's in a worse off place because people thought so highly of him. Like, we just wanted him to get to this point, and he got there last year. And we kind of just want him to be at this point and then take like small steps forward. And it seemed like a lot of people were ready for, can he make a leap? He could make a leap. He could be this thing. He could be that thing. And I kind of, the vibe that I got internally from people was that there was some real hesitation about that being the expectation for him. Because he was, even at the AHL level, like when I talked to Scott Gordon about certain things, there was a certain amount of unpredictability of, he's got these great raw materials, but you don't know consistently how he's going to put them together on any given night. And then he did get consistent, and that's how he got NHL call-ups. And then there was a concern about being, again, like the lows are too low, the highs are very high though. Let's get consistent at the NHL level. And I think he did get there, but not like he had a ton of work under his belt doing that. And then all of a sudden it became, could he be the guy with Provorov? And could he be this? And could he be that? And I think they were just in such a bad way with trying to replace Matt Niskanen that it was a very hopeful thought that came from like a very good place. And based on real evidence of what he was able to do the year before. But I was always, based on the internal vibe that I got, I was always kind of hesitant about that expectation for Phil. And especially once we saw how bad the lack of practice time got and how bad, truthfully, the forwards got when it came to their defensive assignments, that became a very scary thought, is that like with all the tinkering, are you going to put Phil and Provy together and then they have no chemistry and Phil's still kind of figuring it out? And I think he's figured it out at a level that shows true potential, but I don't think Phil has the NHL. I don't think he came into this year with the NHL completely figured out. No. Especially my my experiences with him from 2019, 2020, just seeing like how devastated he was when he didn't make the big club right off the bat that year, it was pretty evident to me that everybody was sort of like, you're going to get there, but you're not there yet. And that always stuck with me, that Phil went from this guy that everybody was like, you're going to get there, but you're not there yet. And and to being a guy who everybody thought would be with Ivan Provorov on the top pairing. It just was a big leap for me.
Yeah, and I think these are reminders that not everyone is Ivan Provorov. Not everyone is a first-round pick, 19-year-old, gets right into the NHL and doesn't have a ton of growing pains. It took Provorov probably 15 to 25 games to really look comfortable at the NHL level on a consistent basis. And he became the guy very early. He became relied upon very early, and didn't have a ton of hiccups. He had some moments, and anyone can remember those. A lot of people remember his game in Chicago when I believe it was a -5 and they got blown out. And he had a moment where he fell and it resulted in a turnover. But not everyone's Ivan Provorov where you get comfortable very quickly. And it kind of reminds you, Philip Myers was an undrafted guy and could take some time. Could take some time for him to really realize all his tools, realize all his strengths, the nuances to the position of being a defenseman. But I'm willing to be patient on Philip Myers, and I'm very willing to be patient on Travis Sanheim. But the Flyers need both those kids to be better, and particularly Sanheim, who's going to be coming into the season with the new contract. We'll have to see what contract he gets, but both will be relied upon for sure. But Taryn, let's get into our cold brew check presented by Duncan, and I think it's a very fun one. The cold brew check presented by Duncan. Which Flyer, Taryn, is in the most Ben Simmons-like situation? Ben Simmons, I think hands down right now, is the most polarizing athlete in Philadelphia. I'm not sure you can even argue that. There's no Carson Wentz in Philly anymore, so you can't argue Carson Wentz. But a very polarizing guy. We know what he just did in that second-round playoff series against the Hawks. A lot of people are doubting his future. I think you see some people still very high on Ben Simmons, but then you see a lot of people just really starting to give up. Taryn, if you had to pick a Flyer that's in the most Ben Simmons-like situation, and Nolan Patrick certainly comes to mind, who is it for you?
It's not Nolan Patrick for me. The whole time I was watching Ben Simmons, like throughout the past few games, I just kept thinking of Shane Gostisbehere.
Okay.
Because a lot of clearly what Ben's struggles have been mental, which is something Shane's openly addressed. I think Shane a few years ago really had people thinking like top deep pair, offensive guy, great on the power play, like there's so much going for him. And kind of one of the knocks of Shane has always been like, but he's not like the part of the game he's the best at is offensive. He's a defenseman. And when you look at Ben, like he's point guard, he can't shoot. So there's like certain likenesses there for me. I do think Patrick's in the same thing where you constantly wonder, like, is this the last time we're going to see him in Flyers uniform, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. But I think the same thing's been true for Shane. I mean, we talked about Shane trade rumors every single season, before, during, and after the season. And, you know, what can you trade him for right now? And if he performs this way, what can you trade him for then? And that's the conversation with Ben right now is, could you trade Ben for like a pack of flaming hot Cheetos right now? I don't know that you could. And there were thoughts that at certain times Shane's stock had really nosedived, and then this year he brought it back. And I think that there's a much stronger Shane comparison there. I do think that the thing that's comparable with Patty and Ben is that, you know, two guys who came in with incredibly high expectations, and both of them, you feel like, I think most people feel like if you let them go and they're successful somewhere else, you're going to be really, really salty about it. But why can't they reach their potential here? Are they just not a good fit for the situation? Like, there are certain similarities, but the Ben Simmons comparison to me immediately always makes me think of Shane Gostisbehere, mainly at this juncture in time because of the mental aspect of it. And I think a lot of Ben's struggles this playoff series have been mental. And I think Shane's game got a little bit derailed when mentally it felt like the ground started to quake beneath him and he couldn't quite find his balance. But I think you could argue Shane bounced back. So
Yeah.
hopefully Ben bounces back. But yeah, I think Shane, I heard somebody make a Lindros comparison the other day. I'm not a big fan of that one, but yeah, they're too dissimilar to me. In that like Eric was more Joel Embiid to me, but I don't know, teach their own.
No, I see that. I definitely do. Nolan Patrick, I certainly see as well. Like they're kind of him and Ben Simmons are divisive for sure, in the sense that some people love the player and they love the person and they're loving the potential still, and some people are starting to just patience is wearing thin. A guy I thought of, Taryn, was Travis Konechny. I see a lot of similarities there in the sense they're both 24 years old. And Konechny has been an all-star, just like Ben Simmons. He's had regular season success. We've seen him kind of turn into a player, but he hasn't done it in the playoffs yet. And a lot of people now are remembering Travis Konechny for his 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs, in which he had 0 goals in 16 games. So I think the jury is still out on Travis Konechny, very much like it is out on Ben Simmons. People don't believe he's really become a player or he's gotten better yet. With Ben Simmons. Travis Konechny is kind of similar. He's had some solid regular season success. He was the All-Star in 2019-20. Before that, he had a couple of 24-goal seasons. So you see it, but you haven't really seen it get to its apex yet, or at least what people are hoping for these players to be. And I think there's still a lot of pressure. And they both have kind of similar contracts. Ben Simmons obviously makes a lot more money because he plays in the NBA. It's a different sport.
$30 million.
Yes.
$30 million.
Where I think Konechny's contract is like, I think I'm almost positive is 6 years, $33 million over the course of the 6 years. Where Ben
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm almost positive. I actually have it right here. Yeah, it's 6 years, $33 million. So the average annual value is about 5.5. Where Ben makes about, I think, $35 million a season, with bonuses, I believe. But they do have their contracts, they have their long-term security, and people still want to see them fulfill it. And I just think a lot of people in Philly still doubt Travis Konechny. Is he an all-star? Is he a 30-goal scorer? Is he a guy you can rely on? Or is he more of a guy that's like, he's going to give you good depth? Is he going to be more of like, I'm going to be one of our best players, but not be the player? Which reminded me a ton of Ben Simmons and all people wanting to see both those players take that next star-like jump and improve on some of their flaws. So Travis Konechny, for me, is more of like the most Ben Simmons-like guy, and maybe a guy that if he doesn't really start to develop or take that next jump, I don't want to say develops. I think Travis Konechny really has developed. I think he's developed into one of their better players. But is he going to become a star, which I think a lot of people want Ben Simmons to be? And is he a star?
I think Travis just came into the year out of shape this year.
Yeah. And, maybe if he doesn't start to develop into that star-like player, maybe his name starts to pop up in trade scenarios, just like it probably will with Ben Simmons. How tied to the hip will the organization be with that player? I don't think Travis Konechny is in the realm of Ben Simmons-like in terms of polarizing, and the organization maybe thinking about giving up on him and parting ways and starting to find a trade partner. I think the organization still really likes Travis Konechny, but I could see it eventually getting there. So Travis Konechny for me is that guy.
Yeah, I think it'll be this year. I think will be very. I think this year will be incredibly important for Travis Konechny. I think in the eyes of the fans too, primarily probably, and no, for everybody. But I think this year will be important in the eyes of the fans because last year, I know I've said this a bunch of times, I think he came in out of shape through no fault of his own. Ontario, I think he spent last offseason in London, Ontario. I could be wrong, but he usually is up where he's from in London, Ontario. And I know that he had made it pretty clear that like it was not was no small task to try to get ice time and try to, do his simple standard workouts. And he kind of not made jokes, but he did kind of own it. I asked him, what have you learned about yourself over the course of quarantine? And he said that my metabolism slowed down and I'm not as young as I used to be. And I think that was probably something that he struggled with. It does hit you at a certain age that like, oh, I can't go eat a bowl of pasta and then run 6 miles immediately afterwards. And I wonder if he went through that this past year. But I thought after the COVID break, it took him a while. And then I do think he played his way into shape towards the end of the season. And we saw him play better when he did. So I think next year will be interesting. It'll be incredibly important for him to show up, be sharp, be the player he was at the start of 2019, 2020. And if he does, I think he'll be fine. The other thing that Travis, I think, has to his benefit that Ben does not is Travis kind of wears his heart on his sleeve on the ice and off the ice. And Ben kind of seems disconnected. Like that was a big criticism of just people when I'm out at Xfinity last night watching Game 7 or I'm wherever I'm at. People are just like, he just doesn't seem like he cares. They both play a lot of video games in their off time, but Travis comes into a post-game press conference and he's like cursing about how bad he sucked, if he played bad, and he's out on the ice and he's vicious and he's annoying and he's, and I think he embodies Philly in that way, that he is as invested in himself as I think a lot of fans feel like they are invested in him, and he shows it. The interesting thing with Ben is that he seems very disconnected, especially this series. He seemed scared, but he also seemed disinterested on a certain level, which again, I'm sure is not true, but that's how it reads. And that doesn't sit well with Philadelphia people because we are anything but disinterested. Like we are so interested. So I think, honestly, another Ben comparison, but not in the trade sense, I think is Carter.
Yeah.
Carter was an incredibly polarizing figure this year, and why he mentally couldn't get it together and this, that, and the next thing. I think Carter was, there's different people who mirror different aspects of the Ben Simmons situation. And I think in terms of polarizing, Nolan and Carter would be at the top. When it comes to the trade stuff, I think it would be Shane. And when it comes to you need to realize your potential, it probably is Travis. You're totally right.
Yeah. No, that's a great point about connecting. Like he is a Flyer. He is Philadelphia in so many ways. Like you can't question his effort or care. You see him out there, Taryn. I always call him like the Energizer Bunny. I just think he's constantly being nasty. He's constantly getting under people's skin, and he's a good player to boot. Yeah. Whereas, I think with Simmons and even Nolan Patrick, you wonder if those players and their relationships with the city, with the fan base, is starting to strain. I think you could certainly argue that with Nolan Patrick. I think a lot of people doubt whether he likes being here in Philadelphia. I don't know if he's really there yet. I just simply do not know. But yeah, you could see that in similarity.
I think people doubt if Nolan likes anything.
That's very true. We all know.
That's just who he is. Like, I as a reporter, I used to sit there and be like, oh my God, what can I even, what is left to ask that he's not going to immediately be like, I don't even want to talk to you right now.
Yeah. I remember
it is what it is.
Yeah, it was his first development camp, but he was out because it was right after it was his draft year, 2017. There was development camp. It came out that he had core muscle surgery before it, so he'd be out. But we still got a chance to chat with him. And that was the first thing I learned about him was, he's not talkative, not a ton of personality. He's to himself. He's well coached in the whole media regard. He made a couple dry quips, like dry humor type of things, but that's just who he is. It's not, I don't think it's because he's grown to hate Philadelphia now. I think it's more like that's kind of who he is as a person, Taryn, as you've learned.
Yeah, I do think he has personality too. Yeah. Like based on what other guys tell me, like he is apparently very funny and like great dry humor and everything else. I think he's just so unimpressed and uninterested. Yeah. Like and I'm okay with that, but I'm like, dude, I'm also contractually obligated to talk to you right now. So I just need you to give me like 5 words. Just give me a subject and a verb and a sentence and I will get out of your hair. So
yeah, like us media folks, we like personality. We like people that give us these great, thoughtful, answers. And yeah, like Nolan's never really been that. That's okay. And
I don't like when Jake Voracek like embarrasses people, but give me Jake Voracek cursing me out after a game. At least you know. Actually, some of his sentences don't have subjects and verbs, but I appreciate Jake's responses regardless.
Yeah.
He means it.
Yeah.
he's there. He's very present. Nolan's just like, get away from me.
Right.
Now.
Right. And he's truly been pretty much since day one. He's just had who's warming, and he doesn't have to be our best friend, you know? Like he doesn't. And that's like none of the players have to be our best friends, but some people are just a little more talkative, a little more personable. Maybe that's not Nolan Patrick, but
it's more fun when you're like, I don't mean to keep, I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off, but like, like I look at Scott Lawton and Mike, like when Michael Raffle was here, we had so much, Kevin Hayes, same thing. We have so much fun with some of the stuff we do. Like, especially once they get friendly enough with you where they'll be like, can I take your mic? And I'm like, yeah. And then they go do something. Like, it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, you're right. There's just other guys who are just, I'm not here for it. I don't want to talk to you. I'm trying to think who else is kind of, Provy used to be like that, but Provy's gotten very, very personable. Like very, very, very like media friendly, I think in the past 2 years. And I'm trying to think, there's not really, I mean, Phil doesn't really want to talk to us.
Yeah, he's a little quieter.
Sanheim will talk to me if Travis Konechny is with him.
Yeah.
When the Travi are together, they're very funny.
Yeah.
They made me, this is just, now we're going off on tangents, but fun story for the road. They made me incredibly late to a game in Ottawa, and TK was my arrival interview. And our producer, Brian Cooper, is very like punctual. And when it comes to work, I am always like 20 minutes early. Like I'm very punctual about work. Everything else in my life, I'm like, forget about it, but work comes first. I'm very punctual. And in Ottawa, well, now we can't take the team bus anywhere, but in Ottawa, they have a shuttle bus from the hotel that'll take you to the arena. And I was like, great. I reserved a shuttle bus for whatever time I need to get to the game. And TK, Kevin Hayes, and Sanheim wanted to stop at Starbucks, and the big team bus wouldn't take them to Starbucks. So they were like, hey, can we hop in the shuttle with you and go with you since Travis is your arrival interview anyway? And I was like, yeah, sure. But if you make me late and I get yelled at, I swear to God, I'm throwing all of you under the bus. And they were like, Kevin Hayes was like, blame me. I don't care, whatever. So we all get in the shuttle and we go to this Starbucks. And I swear to God, they were in the Starbucks so long. I would like and I didn't get anything. And I was like, guys, if you don't get, like, and I think they all ordered black coffee. So it really wasn't their fault. But I was like, I am now so late that my producer is texting me, like, where are you? We need to get this done. Where are you? And I'm having to tell him, like, I reserved a shuttle on time. And now the Travi and Kevin Hayes needed to stop at Starbucks and ask whatever. And we got there, and I think Coop was mad at first, and then we went to the media meal, and I was explaining to him what happened, and he started laughing so hard. He was like, you know what, next time tell them to mobile order. And I was just like, okay. And yeah, I'll never share a shuttle bus with any of them again.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. And they're still early, but I'm late. So I was just like, whatever.
Fine.
And then the whole arrival interview, Travis Konechny was just like sipping on his Starbucks coffee, and I'm like, you turd.
Not a problem in the world.
You turd. So yeah, fun stuff.
Fun stuff indeed. And a very fun topic. That was our cold brew check presented by Dunkin'. This season, be sure to grab a cold brew for game time, because where there's hockey, there's Dunkin'. Well, Taryn, this has been fun. We tied in a little Sixers talk. We talked Flyers all season. We talked NHL awards. I know we're definitely excited for the off season. As July gets closer, all those important dates like the expansion draft, the entry draft, free agency. But we'll have plenty of chatter all week, every week, as this offseason continues, and as Philly sports fans want to hear anything and everything about their sports teams, because we know the Sixers are now done and they're headed into their offseason as well. Well, Taryn Hatcher, thank you so much as always. That's a great face you're just making.
But our producer Ben just put into the group, Taryn, why are you being so weird? You know what? You guys can't see it, but I'm painting something in here, and I think the fumes are like getting to my head.
I was gonna say it could be the fumes. Stay away from the paint chips. If you want to see Taryn's funny faces, watch it on YouTube. You can definitely see it.
Oh my God, the whole thing is gonna be on YouTube. I forgot.
Yes, it is. So check Taryn out on YouTube and wherever you get your Flyers Talk podcast. Ben Berry, our podcast producer, thank you so much.
Oh my God, I'm so mortified I forgot.
And Flyers fans, as always, thank you for listening to the Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. Wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, anywhere, Art19. Thank you so much for listening. Subscribe and rate, and we cannot wait to talk to you next time.
Michael Bolton out.